So welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today, as you can see, Jerry Marzinsky is back. He is very well known here on this channel, and I have a new guest. I'm very excited about that. That is Janet Swain, and she used to work as a nurse in mental health, and you also worked on Patterson Air Force Base. Is that correct? Have
I
I
trained
attacked?
there. And I was I'm not big on titles. I was a nurse practitioner. So I actually prescribed medications.
Oh, okay. Okay. We don't have that distinction here. Not that
Oh,
I know of. So,
okay.
okay, thank you for that.
Well, that's
And
okay.
and I think Patterson Air Force Base, you must have been in contact with a lot of PTSD, correct?
I trained in a lot of places, but I trained at Wright Pat Air Force Base particularly for trauma. And they were very generous to me. Didn't have to train me the way they did. Put a lot of money into my training. I'm forever grateful because it was a beginning of my eye opening, especially
Mhm.
for trauma.
Yeah, yeah. And so, Janet, PTSD is a term that we are familiar with, but I think not everybody has a clear understanding what that really means. Could you walk us through a little bit what the symptoms are?
Sure, and Jerry's got more years in the field than me, so interrupt me, Jerry, anytime you want to add more. We all have trauma, all of us. We just don't realize it. And it can snowball. But what trauma is an upset. And it can be any level of an upset. But the problem with trauma is that at the core of the upset, we make decisions. This is our survival mode. We're making decision in the middle of that upset. Let's say dad remarried and you have a very wicked stepmom who just doesn't care for you. And in the middle of her verbal abuse or her humiliation, that child's taking on an emotion of shame and developing a lie. I'm no good.
It's a
And
decision because in the middle of a trauma, all your attention is centered on you. You know,
Yeah.
everything is centered on you. So you make a decision about yourself based on that trauma. And you don't make good decisions in a trauma. You know, so it's a bad decision. It's not a true decision, but it's
yeah.
stuck there. And then the ego comes in it. You get an overwhelming negative feeling that just washes over you. And it's not a survival place to be in. So you can't function with it. It feels awful. And the ego comes and takes it and goes, well, let me handle this since you can't. And it buries it in the subconscious mind and it battens it down and it wants to get out. But then there's a force, a resistance holding it in. So it creates a ridge and that ridge stays stationary. And it's like a computer virus. Since that information is buried alive, it affects your thoughts, your feelings, your decisions, how you view life. It's like a computer virus running in the background, but it won't come out, and you can't get it out. So that's where the mace treatment method comes in, and it'll pull it out of there in an hour and disintegrate it, get rid of it. Where psychiatry and psychology just keeps beating it open, and it gets worse and worse. And psychiatry pours drugs on the brain, so you sit there and go, I don't care about it anymore. You know, but it doesn't cure anything.
The
Go ahead,
problem,
Jen.
we don't know it's there.
Right.
We think it's us. So that poor young child's going to grow up thinking, I'm no good, and believing it's them. And it really is just the lie deposited at the point of the trauma. And we all have it.
And
We
it
all have it.
keeps reoccurring because since that thing is buried alive, so if the child feels he's no good, anybody in his psychic universe who shows up who makes him feel no good, that thing's going to react and start a fight or flight response. It'll be either attack that guy that's making you feel like you're no good, or run from him or avoid him. but it's that upset is going to keep triggering and triggering, repeatedly triggering, and that thing is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until most people just go, well, that's just the way I am. You know, there's this kind of people I hate, and that's the way it is. And every time they come around, I'm going to either have to fight with them or get rid of them. I mean, and so it's a constant upset. And every time that triggers, it gets stronger and stronger till the person feels that's who they are. And it's not, like you said, it's not true. It's false.
Lie.
It's a lie. It's like a virus, a computer virus running in the back of their mind that they're not aware of, that triggers over and over and over again.
So Judith, that's a minor trauma. Even it's major to that child, but when people think of trauma, they think of like the war, the soldier, or the rape, which are huge traumas.
Yeah.
But we all experience trauma. That's why you see so much addiction because these are symptoms of trauma.
And what's interesting I found is that, you know, a lot of the patients I work with, the trauma, I look at it and I just shrug it off. It'd be like, getting a whack in the head or something. But for them, it was major. I mean, it was a life-changing event. You know, so it may not be something like you said. It doesn't have to be a war thing or a physical trauma where you really get damaged. I mean, sometimes there's one lady, she was a little girl and she crapped her pants and hid it under the bed, and it was at a relative's house who was hotsy-totsy. That traumatized her for life.
That would do it for all of us.
Or wetting their pants, stuff like that.
So, okay, certain aspects of trauma we obviously cannot prevent. Let's say the example with the soldier in a war situation. What, in your experience, Janet, what determines how people are handling it psychologically?
Well, when I was in the industry, we used what was called cognitive processing therapy. It's trauma therapy. And it's almost right. We're bringing them to the point of finding the lie. And I always give this example. It's a great example. I'm going to try and keep everything generic just to keep things private. So this military member was a medic and saw a lot of horrific trauma. Couldn't help a lot of these people. And he or she developed the lie, I'm not qualified, I'm not smart enough, I can't help these people, they're dying. It's a lie. So in our industry, we understood, oh, there's a lie involved, and we have to target the lie and get them to understand it's a lie. Great concept, but it didn't work because, as Jerry said, this is an energy ridge. You don't even know it's there, but you feel it. When people are being triggered, there's energy involved. Let's say you don't like your mother-in-law and you're on your way there and you walk in the door and see her and you feel energy. Ugh. That's an energy ridge. It can be varying degrees of that energy, but we weren't dealing with the energy ridge. We'd find the lie, and so they'd leave thinking, okay, I know it's a lie. What do I do with it? I can't stop from thinking about it.
See, that's where Mace picks up and takes it the rest of the way, because that's halfway, but it's not enough. So what Mace found is that the mind isn't what people think it is. You know, what the mind does is take pictures of where you focus your attention. And that's all it does. It doesn't reason. It doesn't decide things. It doesn't think. It's basically like a screen on a computer. You know, if we didn't have the screen, you wouldn't have the pictures of what we're talking about. And those pictures get frozen. And Mace found that you can turn a concept, an idea, a feeling into an image. Okay. And once you create that image, you can get rid of that image and drain that trauma by keeping your attention on it. And it will eventually vanish, and that energy will return to the person as positive potential. You know,
Who's Maze?
so it's called the Mesa energy method. So it's an
Ah, okay.
energetic system. It's a non-talk therapy. So you don't talk about the trauma. I don't even have to know what it is for this to work. You know, so people who have been sexually molested and had really embarrassing things happen to them, the therapist doesn't even have to know what it is. It still works because it's an energy therapy. Okay, there's no space, there's no time, there's no matter in the energy universe. It works with totally different principles than the physical universe. There's different laws.
Is that the new treatment that you talked about before we
Yes.
started recording that the Australians have now?
Yes.
It's
And I
not,
wouldn't say the Australians,
it's not
because they're,
new. Yeah, it's new for America, but it's not new.
yeah, it's been in I think Australia's had it for what, 20 years or something like that now.
I think Cherie's been training for 19, and she's not she's one of the,
She's one of the originals.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of pushback against it from the establishment. So they took this to one of the universities, and they showed the university, look, it works. You know, they actually worked it on the professors and the establishment there. They said, you give us the patent to it, and we might do something with it. So
We
the
might,
yeah, probably shelf it and forget it.
And
So then they
John-
took it.
Yeah, John had no desire to get rich off this at all. He
No.
wanted to help people.
He wanted to help people, and that's it. He even makes it easy for practitioners to do the training. And so they took it up to the Australian legislature, and they showed them how it worked. And they, oh yeah, this works good. And then they just kind of swept it under the bridge. The establishment doesn't want something like this out there because it works. They're making $14.7 billion a year, selling antidepressant drugs and antipsychotic drugs. They don't want any interference from something that works and is much, much cheaper than what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, what needs to change in mental health? Actually, it is being discussed even in the mainstream. It's not that everybody thinks everything is hunky-dory here. But we can go through a couple of points that I wrote down, and I would like to have your take then on this. So point number 1, teach mental health in all schools. Would you agree with that?
What are they going to teach? What would they teach?
I think it's already overly talked about. There's no one who doesn't know that we have a mental health epidemic. And if you go into the classrooms and ask the teachers, I actually heard this recently, who have been teaching for a long time. Hey, do you see a difference in our kids? Are they acting out more? Are you seeing more autism? They're going to go, yes.
Yes.
What's going on? And in the industry, we didn't know what was going on. We thought, oh, we're being more informed. And so now we're spotting it more. Well, I'm not a big cursor, but that's just bullshit. It's a lie. Let's look at what we're feeding ourselves. Let's look at what we're putting in our bodies. Let's look at the research in mitochondrial function in our cell and all kinds of metabolic diseases, including mental health. And here's the most angering part. They know this. They already know this. There's no money in it.
Right. And
There's
same
no
thing with
money.
big pharma. They don't care. They want that $14 billion a year selling their antidepressants that don't work, cause more problems, and antipsychotic drugs are even worse. They actually shrink the brain. They are actually doing neurological damage with long-term use. These people don't care, and they don't tell the patients about it either. I've never seen a psychiatrist talk about akinesia and to a patient that's just starting off on drugs. And then the lies that they're telling is incredible. This biological imbalance that they're blaming on mental health is a complete fabrication. It was created by Eli Lilly in the 70s when they came out with Prozac. They made it up. They just totally made it up. It was a lie at the time. They knew it was a lie at the time, and they ran with it because they had no other explanation for why those drugs worked. So they did this biochemical imbalance thing, and they got away with it for like 10 years. They're teaching it in the universities, they're teaching it to psychologists, psychiatrists, and they're pushing it. And it's a complete, total fabricated lie. It's been disproved over and over and over again. And you know, you can see it for yourself when you go to a psychiatrist. You think if you got a biological imbalance in your brain, you think they're going to want to know what that imbalance is, what chemicals were out of balance, how much they're out of balance. You will see that never will a psychiatrist give any kind of objective test, no blood test, no EKG, no EEG, no kind of objective test to determine what chemicals are out of balance in the brain, because one does not exist. It never has. And there's never been proof of a biological imbalance of the brain. So the first thing that needs to go is the lies that these people are perpetuating on the entire planet. And it's not just the biochemical imbalance thing. It was the genetic thing was also a lie. There's no proof of that either. And they pushed that for years and years and years so they could sell their friggin' toxic drugs.
Yeah. So Janet, a little challenge for you. Let's say for some reason you are in charge and you couldn't say no, an offer that you could not decline. And you have to teach a class about mental health. What is the first thing that you would tell them?
Nutrition.
Okay.
Nutrition. If they're nursing students, because I started out as a nurse, we have 1 semester of nutrition. And that course is basically nutrition on a chemical level, not really on a anatomy, biological level of what food is doing to our bodies and what poor quality food is killing us. I would teach not about mental health, because most of it is just made up, bogus, name dropping. The DSM diagnostic manual is just a group of physicians who get together every 5+ years and make up names of conditions with symptoms involved, which we all could have.
Right. It's just chopped up normality. They segment it and turn it into disorders. And they don't let anybody in on those groups that they have every 3 years. They're completely sealed off. They don't want anybody looking at what's going on in there.
I tried to be a part of it. I tried to be a part of that. It's an elite group. Nutrition is the basis for everything. And I'd stop separating mental health from the whole body. It's all connected. If you have diabetes, you probably have metabolic disorder. If you have metabolic disorder, your cells aren't functioning properly. If your cells aren't functioning properly, I'm already going to know you struggle with some sort of dysregularity in your mood, whether it be depression, anxiety, agitation. It all goes back down to nutrition. That's why we're seeing, and I know people always Google and go, oh, she had her numbers wrong, so she's false. So don't quote me on my numbers. But there's a 4-fold increase on autism. There is an incredible increase on just even adult bipolar that doesn't show any heredity in the family. There is an increase in schizophrenia, and the meds don't cure it. Some people get some sort of baseline that's acceptable, but they're still having, wanes of depression. They're still having symptoms. it's just like, oh, okay, I guess this is better.
Yeah, for the
The
most part, it
answer-
does not get rid of the voices. It'll lower them, but for the
It-
most
it-
part,
I mean,
it doesn't
what
get rid of them.
happens, yeah, what happens is we're flattening their mood.
Right. Yeah, they're
So
drugging them up.
they're actually becoming flattened in their mood. So a lot of them will be what we call anhedonia. They don't feel anything. They don't even have like intimate desires for their mate anymore. They don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So great, you're not depressed,
They're
sort of.
just drugged up.
Yeah, and the side effects are atrocious.
Yes.
I had my own little breakdown because I put my whole career into this, and it was a lot of years of training, a lot of money, and it wasn't very long. Even in school, that little light bulb was going on, going, "What is this? What this logical?" And then you get out in the field, and you don't even have time to research because you're seeing so many patients that you can't even hear them. You're seeing them every 15 minutes, and they're coming in on 15 meds. So there alone is a problem.
Yes.
Meds could be causing the problem. And there's no time to chart. So you're staying up till 2 a.m. charting. And I started to just do research, and I just thank the Lord this started to come into me. This information is like, I'm harming people. I'm harming them. Can you imagine what that feels like? And you'll find a lot of people in my position waking up to this. We're harming people. We're not helping them. I want to give this caveat because this is really important for me. And I do this, but I don't expect anyone else to. I don't charge people because most people who have serious mental health don't have money. And
Right.
and freedom from this should be available for everybody. Now, that being said, please don't flood my website with appointments. This is for people who can't afford it. If you can afford it and want to be seen, just donate because our ministry offers help in so many different ways. But what I would teach people is they don't like to hear it. They want to take a pill. But you got to change your lifestyle. There's one important thing, and please do the research. You're going to blow your mind away when you find this out. I'm going to use the term ketogenic diet, but it really is high protein, high fat, and very low carbs. That resets your body. So I found this out by accident because again, when I was working, they gave you no time to research on your own. You had to do it at 3 a.m. The ketogenic diet resets your body. They knew this long before Rockefellers got in with their petroleum-based medical field medications. The ketogenic diet was used to stop epilepsy. I saw women go on the ketogenic diet to lose weight and their PCOS cured. So they weren't able to conceive and have children, and they were told to lose weight. And when they went on the ketogenic diet, it reset their cells. And their PCOS was cured and they were getting pregnant. It's all about nutrition, all of it. If you go on to my, I put it more on my, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I thought I turned that off. If you go on my Facebook page, I post considerable YouTube videos. I don't reinvent the wheel. People have already done all this research. I post plenty of videos showing people where the truth is. And the truth is, can I give you an example?
Yeah, sure.
In one of, I used to travel for during COVID, and I worked in a hospital in New Hampshire, and I'd have to do rounding on the floors for the mental health people. And there was a very intelligent professor who was admitted experiencing psychosis. No history of it, experiencing psychosis. Keep in mind, very intelligent. That's a big key. And they asked me to start her on something, and I started her on B1, thiamine, high dose. And the doctor mocked me. That's all you're going to do? That's all I recommend. You know, if you want to give her something else, go ahead. It didn't take long for her to start getting her mind back. A lot of times her psychosis was paranoia. She was paranoid of the mailman, and it came on gradually to where they had to admit her. She was also admitted, ironically, for a metabolic disorder. Light bulb connection, it's all connected.
Yeah.
We have
So
found
what exactly? I didn't hear that
No.
acoustically. What did you recommend?
thiamine. It's vitamin B1. Most of Americans don't even know they're depleted in it. So thiamine B1 is like the key that unlocks the cell. If you're depleted in thiamine, you can take B12, you can take B complex supplements. It's not going to do you any good because you're too low on thiamine and none of it can get in the cell. And that's where we want it. We want it in the cell. So my little kids, I would see, are going to be careful, or I don't know how they censor you there. My little smart kids, high energy, eating lots of pizza and soda. You need thiamine to metabolize carbs. So when our kids are eating lots of carbs, they're depleting their thiamine. And when their thiamine's down, you're going to see a hyperactive, agitated kid who can't stay focused. So you start giving them thiamine, and you start to see a difference. There's so many ways to help our bodies that have nothing to do with these horrific medications.
Yeah, good to know. And I will, for the audience, I will put all the links in the description box so they can visit your Facebook page and yeah. So Jerry, do you want to add something to the subject? Otherwise, I would move on to the second point.
Well, what I'd like to do briefly is just kind of summarize the report card for mental health in the United States right now. Okay. So in the US right now, there's almost 50,000 people kill themselves every year, year after year after year after year, most of them on antidepressant medications. Right? Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the US. Okay. Between 2000 and 2018, the suicide rates increased 37%. Okay, this is a report. We got more psychologists, we got more psychiatrists, we got more psychiatric drugs on the planet now than we ever had in the history of mankind. And this is what we're getting. This is what we're getting out of it. An estimated 24 veterans kill themselves every day in the US.
Yes.
From 2006 to 2016, the suicide rate increased by 2% a year, with 1.4 million suicide attempts in 2017 and 47,000 deaths. 10,000 Americans are diagnosed with schizophrenia yearly. Schizophrenia is among the top 10 health problems on the planet. Okay? And this is what we're getting with the current treatment modalities that they have. Those antipsychotic drugs cure absolutely nothing. Like Janet said, they just dumb you down. You know, they don't get rid of the voices. They don't get rid of psychiatric symptoms. They just dumb you down. They cure absolutely nothing. And the antidepressants are the same. And here you got the televisions every day. Get this drug, get that drug, get this. You walk into a psychiatrist's office, you're going to come out with a diagnosis and some kind of pill. And those antipsychotic drugs, like Janet said, the side effects are horrific. Most people eventually stop taking them. And when they started doing autopsies on long-term mental health patients in the state hospitals, they found that their brains were shrunk like walnuts. And the researchers went, well, we think this is due to the antipsychotic drugs. course, Big Pharma and the psychiatric mafia went, no, it's not our drugs. It's the schizophrenia doing this. So the researchers went back and they started feeding those drugs to mice and rats and monkeys, and they found the same thing is happening. So not only are they not curing anything, they're causing more neurological damage. They're adding to the problems. They're rotting out the peripheral nervous system. They're rotting out the central nervous system with these long-term drugs, only to suppress behavior. And that's what they want. They don't want any problems out of schizophrenics, so they just drug them silly. So they're sitting around going like that. You know, they're not curing anything.
Yeah.
So
Julie,
I'd give them an F- as far as a mental health system. It's a joke.
I'd love to give you an example of that. I think people will be able to really relate to this. And I don't think everybody in the industry is evil by no means.
No.
We're trapped once we get into it. But anyways, the example I want to give is when I was working in the jail, I had a person who was arrested. She was a grandmother who was depressed and started on antidepressants. Now, antidepressants, and we don't know why, we don't know the mechanism of these meds. It made her manic. So she was at the mall and got grandiose ideas of stealing for her grandkids. And she was coming out of the mall with all of her things she had stolen, never had a history of doing any of this, got paranoid, ran into her car, sped out of the parking lot and ran over someone. Fortunately, that person did not die, but that grandmother got 25 years.
Yeah.
And you hear
Yeah.
case after case after case here where people are on antidepressant drugs and do stuff like that, as well as kill themselves. You know, I think there's even a warning label on these things now that they may cause suicidal ideation. You know, they're not curing anything.
Yeah.
I remember, but that was a long, long time ago, but there was talk about, you know, some mass shootings that took place in the United States and psychiatric drugs. Would you say, yeah, there is a connection?
100%.
Okay.
If it's not the meds itself, it is trauma. You know, it all starts with trauma and poor nutrition.
Yeah. If you talk to schizophrenics, you're not going to find any that don't have serious trauma in their background. Serious trauma. It's not little stuff. It's big stuff. It, like Janet says, it all comes down to that trauma. You know, but then the voices that these people are hearing too, they're running very fixed, repetitive patterns. You know, there's like 23 of them. They're on my website at jerrymarzinsky.com. If they're running repetitive patterns, they're not hallucinations like the psychiatric mafia insists. You know, hallucinations don't run patterns. They're all over the place. Yet these people over and over and over are teaching in the universities, they're teaching in the colleges, they're teaching in the medical schools that the voices schizophrenics hear are hallucinations. They're not by a long shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, Jerry, we discussed this in length on other shows. So if people are interested, they just have to go back and watch a different show with. So number 2, little bit weird as well, but here we go. Create specialists mother and baby mental health services, because 1 in 10 women will have mental health issues during or after pregnancy. So what do you make of that? Create mental health services with specialists for mothers and babies.
I'm going to sound redundant. I'm going to take you on the medical side always, because that's my basis. Mothers can have postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis. Imagine you're pregnant. Where is all of your resources going when you're pregnant? That baby.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to get right back to B1 because our little babies can be born B1 deficient because mom is. We don't need a mental health separation because it's all, our body's all connected. We need OBs, midwives trained extensively in nutrition because it's all about what we're doing and how we're treating our bodies. And people don't want to hear that because that takes effort.
Yeah, I know. And we have been so accustomed, drive-through food, drive-through marriage license, drive-through this and that. And I think that has been done by design. But on the other hand, we have to admit we gobbled it up like Skittles.
Let me give you a great example of this because I had this. Any woman who has gestational diabetes, somebody should be really educating her on somewhere she is imbalanced. I already know now. I can go take myself back all the way to a little girl, hyper, very active, busy. Look at the bird, look at the butterfly, constantly distracted. That's a B1 deficiency. And if you have, and I didn't know this because my trauma told me I wasn't smart. When you're depleting your B1, you're not processing information well either, constantly distracted. And some of our, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, some of our smartest kids can be instantly depleted on B1. I'm going to say this without you being censored. By inflicting things into their body that was never meant to be there. And you will see an instant cause and effect. I saw an instant cause and effect over and over on the teenage, highly suggested, I don't want to say the word.
Yeah. The jumbo juice.
Yes. Instant depletion where they almost look schizophrenic because you absolutely depleted their B1. It's gone. And now you're sitting in front of an empty shell of a child. So I went into nursing pro all these things. But I'm a spiritual girl. I think the Lord opened my eyes and said, look at this. Look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
By
another
the
thing.
way, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Another thing that's going on is this prescription of amphetamines, Adderall, Ritalin to kids, where the B1 might handle that. And I've seen so many prisoners who started off on Ritalin and Adderall, and they would just keep increasing it, and then moving up to meth. Now, meth, I don't know how it does it, but it kind of opens people up to schizophrenia. I've seen hundreds of prisoners who went psychotic on meth. And
Yeah.
it starts off like they go, oh, I'm just hallucinating, and the voices start up and they start telling them you're rotten, you're no good, you're stupid, you're crazy. That starts that, and then they go, well, that's just a hallucination. When I come down, it'll go away, and it does. It might do that 20, 30, 50 times, and then one day it doesn't. Those voices are there forever. They're permanent. They're just as crazy as anybody in the mental hospitals. They can't function. They can't hold a job. They're out there. They have to steal. They have to rob. They have to sell drugs to survive. And they end up in prison. The prison is full of them. It's full of them. The prisoners themselves call meth the devil's drug, because they feel that it lets the devil in. It lets those voices in. And like I said, the prison's overflowing with them.
Yeah. Janet, when you got aware what was really going on, I assume you started also treating your patients differently.
I
Did
did.
you? Yeah, sure. And did you ever get in trouble for that?
All
Let's
the
say
time.
with,
All
yeah.
the time.
Me
And
too.
mocked. Like I said, my office was connected to the inpatient hospital because I saw outpatient and then I rounded. Because there was no free time. In this industry, you have no free time. And then they call me up. Well, what's this? Why'd you do that? I had to learn to chart rationalizing why I did what I did, because I'm not starting people on the typical garbage that they expected. I would actually do anything in my power to get people not to start these meds because I knew what they were going to do to them. I knew it. But that's not how the system works. The system wants you to see somebody every 15 minutes. Don't waste your time talking to them. Insurance doesn't cover that. Just start them on a med. And here's the really good one. Why are you bringing them back in 2 weeks? We don't have time to fit somebody in for a follow-up. Do at least 1 to 2 months. So most of these people react on these meds. You need to see them back right away. I got in trouble all the time. I resigned because they were going to they'll take away your license.
I ran into the same exact thing. You know, I couldn't put down what I was doing in the sessions because they would have gutted me. I had to drop my license after I retired because they would have went after me. They didn't bother me as long as schizophrenics were taking their medications. But soon as they started fully recovering, going off their meds, they don't need it anymore, then they came after me. And I was shocked because I thought, well, they're going to be glad they don't have to pay for meds anymore. The voices are gone. These people are back to normal. They can live a normal life. No, it wasn't like that. They were pacing around like a couple of demons. They sent investigators in to try to find out what I was doing with these people, and there was one where they had a valid MMPI that the guy was psychotic as a bedbug when he came into prison. After we were finished with him, the voices were gone. He was back to normal. And the investigator said, well, can we give you another MMPI? He said, sure, you can. They took it. He was normal. They went nuts. They went absolutely nuts. He's doing something he shouldn't be doing. So, something's wrong here. And they went after me. It was crazy. I just couldn't comprehend it. I was shocked.
So just to make sure people don't go, oh, that's conspiracy. I'll give you some examples. Barbara O'Neill is amazing. I don't know if you know her. I could binge watch her all day. She was banned from Australia, practicing holistic medication. Amazing. I encourage your listeners, go look up Barbara O'Neill. You'll get a lot of great resources on healing your body on its own. Dr. Buttar is dead now. A lot of our holistic people end up dead.
Yes.
So I don't want to sound like conspiracy, but it is a fact. So I always tell people I'm not suicidal, but I'm not important enough to go after. So,
yeah, that's true. A lot of naturopaths are being murdered.
Yeah. Dr. Buttar was amazing. And he was absolutely left alone until 2020. And that's all I'll say. And you'll be able to piece the dots together that he ended up poisoned.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep everything pure on your video. So
Yeah, I know, and I appreciate that, and I'm pretty sure my listeners can put 2 and 2 together here. Yeah. So, and now I would like to go to point 3, if my cat lets me, because of course
my dog's down here too.
so keep people with mental health issues out of custody.
Amen.
Yeah, I don't know what they think they're doing there. Locking these people up. So you have somebody who goes psychotic. He's already uh, mentally ill and unstable. He's already
Mhm.
violent. He's already impulsive. You lock him up in supposedly a correctional institution with a bunch of gangsters, where he gets a education in criminology, how to extort, how to fight. What I saw them doing in some cases in the prisons, they would force a psychotic patient off of their medications and
Yeah.
use them
Cold,
for human torpedoes.
cold
They
turkey.
cold turkey. They go off them, and then they'd start feeding them stuff about, hey, that gangster over there in the other gang, he's planning to kill you. You better go do something about him quick. And they feed all this paranoia to the guy. The guy's crazy. He goes over and he stabs the guy, and he gets more years. So after brutalizing these guys, putting them in a horrible, negative, fearful environment for years, they go, okay, now they're finished their sentence. They give them $50 and they go, okay, you're free to go. They're in much worse shape than they ever went in. And on top of that, it cost more to keep them in a state hospital or in a prison than it did a state hospital, because you're paying for all the security, you're paying for all the equipment to keep that security. I mean, it costs much more to keep them there than it did at the state hospitals. They closed down all the state hospitals. They
Yeah.
think they were saving money. Started in California with Proposition 13 because they were paying too much property taxes. So they closed down the hospital. Now the prisons all over the United States are overflowing. They're just building more and more and more prisons, and they're releasing these people out to terrify society. I mean, it's sick. It's actually sick what they're doing. And they're getting. They say they're giving community standards mental health treatment in the prisons. That's a total joke. It's a friggin' lie if I ever saw one.
No.
I watched
Huge money-making, billion-dollar money-making industry, these private medical companies, and they're on 60 Minutes, they're so corrupt.
they're a joke.
They come into these prisons bidding these billion-dollar contracts, and they don't even desire to help medically or mentally or orally, because again,
I
it's all
watched them.
part of it.
I
Yeah,
watched them fail time after time after time after time. They give very substandard treatment, even worse than the state did, much worse than the state did.
they
And the
die. They're dying. They're dying from withdrawal. I watched a woman give birth in a cell. I didn't watch her give birth. I heard it screaming. I'm not on the medical team. The whole medical team claimed she was faking it. She delivered that baby and it died. And that's just a tip of the iceberg of the horror that's going on in the prison, and there's no accountability.
right.
None.
And I was good friends with a warden who was a state warden, and he went over to the private sector. They would
Mm.
not allow anything that cost money in there. No treatment programs, no mental health programs, no nothing.
I
They
got in
paid
trouble all the time.
I did too. I was always in trouble.
I was in trouble all the time. Why are
Me
you
too.
seeing so many inmates? Because they need it. Well, they wanted you to see 3 to 5 people a day and go home. And they didn't
Yeah.
care what just keep it cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything was about the money.
Yeah.
I watched, there was one guy I watched them release that I knew he was going to kill somebody within 6 months. He was so psychotic, he was so violent, but his sentence was up. So they're throwing them out. They're throwing them out by the dozens every day. But if one guy escapes from the prison, and a murderer escapes from the prison, it hits the newspapers. Oh, this guy escaped. He's running loose in the community. He's going to murder somebody. Lock your doors. Get your guns out. That's insane. They're releasing 20, 25, 50 people a day that have those same kind of characteristics, setting them loose with $50, turning them loose into the community and saying, okay, you're free. No follow-up whatsoever. It's insane what they're doing.
I can share this because it made the news. Collin County released somebody, and this person went right up to Dallas Love Field with a gun, and they shut down the whole airport. Was a known mental health patient, no care, no,
Nothing.
no.
Well, this incident actually happened to me. I was working on one of the medium security prison units in psychology, and this one prisoner was getting more and more psychotic, and he was centered on this other prisoner, and he kept making more and more threats, and he was psychotic. He was hearing voices, so we had to send those people over to the medical unit to get medicated. So I wrote him up, all the things he was saying, what he was doing, how he was acting, sent him over to the medical unit. But the chief psychologist and the psychiatrist were in cahoots. So this psychiatrist was working other places, and he would just come in and see these people that the psychologist picked out. But he was getting in trouble for issuing too many medications, the psychiatrist was. So they put the psychologist there, a stooge, to turn these people back with a different diagnosis so they wouldn't have to medicate them. This guy was getting increasingly dangerous. They sent him back. I put him down as psychotic. He's getting more and more dangerous. And they sent him back with a diagnosis of personality disorder. I wrote it up again, more details. Said he's psychotic, he's getting dangerous, he's making threats against this guy, he's going to hurt somebody. Sent him back there. The same stooge sent him back again a second time. Okay, so all this is going in the medical record. I sent him there a third time. I said, he's going to hurt somebody. You need to do something. And I put it, big, long write-up in there, sent him back a third time. They sent him back again with a diagnosis of personality disorder. 2 weeks later, he stabbed somebody 23 times. He didn't kill him, but he stabbed them 23 times. I was so furious. I had to stay out of work for 2 days because I know I would have beat the crap out of the chief psychologist. I would have assaulted him if I went back there. So this is what you're dealing with in the prisons. It's a joke. The mental health section virtually doesn't exist.
No.
It's a joke, and they only give antipsychotic drugs to the psychotic prisoners who are acting out. If they're not acting out, they're not causing any problems, they don't get any treatment.
Oh, so the only people who got true treatment in the county jail where they were prepping them to go to court. Once they got through court, they didn't care.
Yeah.
They just wanted them to be able to be stable enough to stand before a judge. That's all they care.
Okay.
Judy,
So
I would admit these people. And there's private hospitals, they all need to be shut down, they're for profit and they're a nightmare. Yes. But if we were really truly concerned about mental health, I would stabilize them if they needed to be stabilized on meds. If they could stay inpatient without starting them on any of these horrible meds, the whole treatment would be resetting their body with a fasting diet. I would put them on a keto diet, keep them there until their body is reset, and then discharge them with the right information on how to take care of your body.
Well, I would add to that they should have MACE therapists on
that's
in all of these institutions, in the prisons, in the schools. Okay, right. So the diet and then the MACE that actually works, and cut down on these toxic medications that the psychiatric mafia and big pharma are pushing on people.
Right.
That they're not working, this whole system isn't working, and they still keep doing it time after time just for the money. They don't care about whether people get better. They're after the money.
I understand that it is a multi-billion-dollar business, pharmaceutical treatment for mental health. Yet I'm thinking, if what you suggest, Janet, and what you say, Jerry, and we would really put that into action, would that not lower the cost in general? And I do not only mean the dollar costs, but also the costs for society itself.
Yeah.
If you have thousands of unstable people running
Oh,
around
yes.
that are freshly released from the prison, so wouldn't that be a
Yes.
number one, a more financially sound way to go, and it would benefit society even
Yes,
more?
yes. Because you look at a schizophrenic, it's not just the schizophrenic who's disturbed. He disturbs everybody around him. He
Yeah.
tears apart the entire family. He alienates friends. He alienates relatives. He's causing problems. He's making misery for a whole range of people. It's like throwing a rock in a pond and watching the ripples go out. Same thing with the schools. They're disruptive in school. They're disruptive in society. You know, and you look at the the actual money that's changing hand. The antidepressant market in the U.S. is expected to reach 15.98 billion by 2023. We're talking billion. This isn't million. This is billion. Antidepressants that don't work, that are increasing. So most of these people who kill themselves are on antidepressants. Global antipsychotic sales hit 14.54 billion in 2021, expected to reach 15.5 billion by 2022, and it's probably up around 16, 17 billion right now, worldwide. These drugs are poisoning people. They're causing neurological damage. They're not curing anything. They're only making these people rich.
Juliet, I'm going to spin it to the other side now. This also is going to be a huge roadblock. There are so many people tied into this system making money.
Yes.
Even if they don't do it intentionally. I've lost comrades, I've lost friends, because I consider myself a whistleblower. And this is going to impact not just the big pharmaceutical companies, but the nurses, the doctors, the practitioners, the therapists. We build our money on chronic care, but this shouldn't be chronic care. This is acute, we heal it, we move on. The money's in chronic care. So when I go and tell the psychiatrist or the physician's assistant, the nurse practitioner, these are all providers in America, that what we're doing is a crock and it's nonsense,
They go nuts.
it's not going to happen. Their livelihood's all caught up in this.
Right.
They don't want to hear it.
It goes all the way back to the medical schools too. And
Yeah.
the big pharma that controls the medical schools. It's deep and it's subversive and it's deceptive. I mean it's deep. They're training these people, hundreds and hundreds of psychiatrists coming out every year believing this garbage, And
I prided myself on my knowledge. I Venn diagrams on medications and symptoms, and I was so proud of. I knew my dopamines, my norepinephrines, I knew it all, and it was all a lie.
yes, lie after lie after lie. The whole system is built on lies. They don't make any money curing people. Bottom
No.
line, they make no money curing people. They make money out of keeping them sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The thing I would just tell people, don't get overwhelmed on what we can't do. I was there. I was, oh my gosh, how do you break this? This is huge. It's a monster. It's a beast.
It is.
We're in charge of our own selves.
Yeah.
We do not have to rely on the system. Get yourself educated. If you're too depressed or too just debilitated, you can't do it, come see one of us. We'll get you started on your journey. And again, I'm not here to make money. I don't charge. And I specifically say I don't because it's not fair. Lots of therapists have gone in and put in a lot of time and money to learn this. I'm in a position where I want to give back because I did, in my heart, I did harm.
Mhm.
We're taught to do no harm, and I did harm. I unknowingly did harm. I can't take that back. And Jerry helped clear that trauma. Thank you, Jerry. Because when I had that breakdown of the overwhelming going, what are we doing? This is horrible. I wish I could remember how I found MACE. I believe God brought it to me because I never heard of it. You don't hear this in America. And I got a hold of Cherie, and I got led to Jerry, and I'll tell you, it's pretty quick. It's a pretty quick healing of the trauma. It's the beginning of the journey.
Why don't you
Mm.
tell them a little bit about what that was like for you to go through that and what you
The,
were expecting?
the session itself.
Yeah.
So I read all the books, so I knew. But the funny thing is, I just did a session. What is today? Thursday. And the person, even right after we got through with the ruin, Jerry, they were skeptical. I can't believe this is all there is. There's, you know, because the industry makes us do all of this circus stuff, like even EMDR. You know, that's the
Yeah.
big military one. It doesn't work, but anyways, they're expecting something huge, but you don't know it works until you know it works. I'll give you an example. After I saw Jerry, I used to talk to a friend across the street in the park, and I was in the park and I said, I could write a book on how angry I am about the system and what I went through, but I don't feel angry anymore.
Mhm.
I have all the memory of it, but I don't have this enormous anger, rage about how could they? I'm a victim. This is horrible. It's gone. That rage is gone.
Yep.
Now I'm
And,
able to do something about it.
and that's how it works. That emotional ridge, that computer virus in the back of your mind is drained. It's like draining a car battery. You can get a brand new, fully charged car battery. If you draw it down to nothing, you can't recharge it again. It won't recharge. It's dead. That's the same thing with a negative identity. We drain it down till there's nothing left. And then what you have left is what Janet just said. You have a memory of what happened, but there's no emotional charge to it. It doesn't bother you anymore. You're free to make rational decisions about that area instead of having explosion after explosion after explosion and reacting. You're no longer reacting. You're now making rational, logical decisions where you reacted previously. So those of you who are thinking about going on antidepressant medications, before you do, please go visit causisminstitute.com and find yourself a causism therapist there. It's CAUSISM. So it would be www.causisminstitute.com. You know,
And you can see
Steve,
anyone. We do it by Zoom.
yep,
I mean, I prefer to see people in person, but that's, you know, unless you're in Texas, that's not going to happen.
and you can be seen anywhere in the world. And what's interesting about this system is the therapist doesn't have to know anything about the trauma. So if you were sexually molested or something embarrassing happened, the therapist doesn't need to know that. You know, it
So
works
no
anyway.
emotional striptease.
Is what?
No emotional striptease.
No emotional striptease at all.
Oh, not like that. No. In fact, if you have you experienced psychotherapy at all, Judith?
Mhm.
So the patient always leaves with all of that in their mind, reviewing what you just talked about. The energy
Over and over and over. Doesn't
it's
go
so
anywhere.
real. Yeah, it's like picking a scab. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna pick that scab again, you know?
over and over.
Maybe if we really understand the wound, it'll heal, but then we'll pick it again. It has nothing to do with understanding. It's the emotion. That's it.
Yeah. So, point number 4, employ people with mental health issues. More than half would like to work, but less than 1 in 10 are in paid employment.
It's the #1 disability in America, mental
Okay.
health. And growing. You know where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be a broken record.
No, but that, you know, sometimes you have to hammer it home.
It's metabolic disorder. Mental health is metabolic disorder. If you have mental health, I'm almost sure I'm gonna find comorbidities. Whether it's autoimmune, diabetes, metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome, for people who don't know, all that simply is your blood pressure's high. You usually have a little bit of fat gut. Your blood sugars are unstable. It's beginnings. It's the beginnings of lots of other comorbidities you'll start to see. I would say, don't Google and say I'm wrong, because I'm saying I don't know. I'm going to guesstimate 60 to 70% of Americans have it. Because of our diet, not because they're lazy and want to eat junk. It's because even our oils we use are killing us. Any seed oil is killing you. Now, did we know that? Did I learn that in nursing school? No. I didn't learn any of this.
So what do you suggest?
Extra
Instead-
virgin olive oil. What do you mean? What do I suggest?
Yeah, in terms of oil, but you already answered it.
Extra virgin olive oil, and make sure it's only from one location, because they'll even fool you on that. You get anything out of just Italy, extra virgin olive oil, and look at the ingredients. There should be no natural flavoring. There should be no preservatives. There should be pure extra virgin olive oil. And that's just the beginnings. The amount of sugar we ingest is incredible, incredible. And so these are lifestyle changes. And this is where I would go with my patient. I don't call them patients anymore, because I no longer am a nurse practitioner. The people who come and ask for help, I tell them it's a lifestyle change and it's your choice. Do you want to feel better? Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to have more of a mental balance? You're going to have to look at what you're eating. You're just gonna, and it's that simple, but for so many people, it's like a mountain.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? Sometimes it's a good idea, because if, let's say, you are overindulging in pizza, pasta, and you know, some sweets here and there, and then some soda cans, and maybe some chips in front of the TV, a little bit of chocolate. Yeah, that is a recipe for disaster.
Huge.
So, what do you think? Is it a good idea to tell people, you know what, make the changes slowly? Maybe
Yes.
start with your breakfast and uh, get rid of the cereals once and for all, and make yourself some eggs. You can have a piece of toast with it, maybe a better quality, and then you go to the next step and the next step. Because if you try to do it all at once, it can be overwhelming.
They give up.
Yeah.
I tell them, if you stop these 3 things, just these 3 things, or just minimize, you're going to feel better. High fructose corn syrup is a killer. It's worse than sugar. It's a killer. It's in everything. So read what's in your ingredients before you buy it. If it has high fructose corn syrup, put it back on the shelf. It's going to kill you. Extra virgin olive oil and nothing else. Vegetable oil isn't even made from vegetables. It's crock. And if you do the research on how they make these oils, you're going to be shocked you're putting it in your body. And sugar. Limit those three: the oil, the high fructose corn syrup, and the sugar. I eat sugar. If we go out to dinner, you bet I want a piece of carrot cake or key lime pie. But don't eat it every day.
No, yeah.
Don't eat this stuff every day. So to me, that's all I tell people. Limit your sugar. High fructose corn syrup is a negative no, 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 no. And the seed oils are a no, no, no. Get rid of that and you're on your way.
Hmm.
Now, if you're really mentally ready, I would reset your body with a keto diet for a month.
Yeah,
Put
that
yourself
is
in ketosis.
very helpful for a lot of things. And I'm also a huge fan of prepare your meals yourself. I'm not saying do not ever go out for dinner, but you
Yes.
know, buy the basics, buy the real food, not that TV dinner crap, and then on top of it, you drop it into a microwave to ensure that really all the good ingredients are gone. And yeah.
I, I make our own bread because I know
Yeah.
what's going into it. I know it's organic. I know I'm putting in what I want in that. Everything's organic. I don't put sugar in it. I wouldn't even eat the bread, but my husband likes sandwiches. So, but even the bread at the store is going to have most likely high fructose corn syrup. It's just bad. They're poisoning us
Yes.
all for money. So.
Oh, okay. Jerry, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to add is don't buy into these psychological psychiatric diagnoses that they're putting out in this DSM of theirs. They teach that like the Bible. When I was in the PhD program, that was the Bible. You had to memorize these things as if they were real. They're not real. They made them all up. They've got segments of normal behavior that they cut into pieces and they pathologized. 2/3 of the people who made them up are associated with the big pharma industry.
Yeah.
These meetings, these secret meetings they have behind closed doors where they make these diagnoses up and they vote them in and they vote them out. They said it's like a tobacco barn. The guy comes in, he goes, "Hey, I got a new psychiatric diagnosis, and these are the symptoms." And and I'll bet you dollars to donuts. The pharmaceutical guys are going, "Well, can we turn this into something that'll make medicine, and we can make money from it?" You know. So in 1952, they had 106 psychiatric diagnoses. In 1980, they had 256. The DSM now lists 297. They're all fabricated. With every new edition, there's more and more and more of these diagnoses that are coming out. And some of the diagnoses, one of them is mathematics disorder. If you don't like mathematics, if you're not good at mathematics, you've got a mathematics disorder. There's something wrong with
Oh,
you.
do
You're
you have a
disordered.
case with that?
Oh, I have
Yeah,
that.
I have that too. Bad. But well, let me see.
That all my life.
Another one is sibling relational disorder. So if a couple of kids get into a fight, now it's a relational disorder. You know, some of the more bizarre ones is Paris disorder. I think it's people from Japan. I think it is when they go to Paris, they go into culture shock. So they call that a Paris disorder, and they recommend
Yeah, we talked about
antidepressant
that.
drugs for it. Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
Valium.
Valium. And Valium completely destroys your memory. I mean,
So here's
you can't
something.
remember anything after taking that stuff.
Before the pharmaceutical industry became a big deal, I don't, Jerry, you probably know when this started, the 30s, 40s, whenever Rockefeller found his petroleum.
Yep, the Flexner report.
Before that, it was mostly holistic. It was Wild West medicine. But this is how crazy we can be sheep and follow. They were giving babies heroin to keep them quiet. Just because somebody who declares they're a specialist or they're more educated or whatever, use your own common sense. We all have it. We all have it.
And
history is going to be terrible on us and what some of the crazy stuff we did.
I recently read an article here. It was a German article, and it said, your doctor is unable to do 10 push-ups, but you trust him 100%.
Ain't that?
Oh yeah, and you look at the suicide rate of schizophrenics. You know, they suicide at a rate 5 times higher than the normal population. Then you look at the suicide rate of psychiatrists. It's right up there with them. So they suicide at the same friggin' rate as the worst, most disturbed patients that they treat.
You know my attitude towards the suicide rate among psychiatrists. Karma is a bitch.
I kind of relate to why that might happen.
Okay.
Again, I only have a master's level education, so my education isn't nearly as long as these physicians. And they come out of this training in massive debt unless their parents are beyond filthy rich. So they're at least 6 figures in debt. They're in an industry that they might even start to realize is a crock, but there's not a thing they can do about it because they're stuck.
Yes.
They're stuck.
They see that those drugs don't work.
None of what we're doing works. And the amount of patients is overwhelming.
Yes.
They're backed up in the ER for days.
I know. I was in charge of clearing them out of there, and they didn't want you spending any time with them.
There's
Just
nowhere.
get them out.
I was up in New Hampshire. There's nowhere to put them. There's nowhere to put them. They end up in jail.
Yes.
But
Or
what
on
I'm
the streets.
saying is, not everybody in the industry is bent on just money and corruption. So many, including so many of the dear people I worked with, are trapped.
Yes.
It's their livelihood.
Right.
Yeah, they have to go along with a program in order to not to go bankrupt.
Exactly.
So I had to drop my license so they wouldn't come after me. You know, I knew they would dirty it up if I went on and spoke in public about what I saw in the mental health system. I knew they'd go after me. I had to drop it.
Yeah. And sometimes I like to have a look at the symbolism.
Me too.
Have you ever noticed that the butcher and the doctor are wearing the same uniform?
White coats.
And they got that snake going up their staff.
I don't even think the majority of the doctors go into this field or choose to do it for corruption.
No, that is not what I'm saying.
Yes, but it is true. I had that white coat. Makes you look like, I'm educated.
Yeah, they made us wear them for a while. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, the psychiatrists remind me of the ancient Egyptian priests, back in ancient Egypt. They're the same kind of thing, oh, we got the magic, we've got the education, we got something, we know something that you don't, that's bull crap.
Yeah. So number 5, help people with long-term physical health conditions like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, what have you. So they are suggesting here also to give mental support to people with physical issues so that they don't develop a mental health issue. Would you agree?
So go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I've been surprised by how many patients that I've dealt with using the MACE method where they had a pain somewhere, a chronic pain. Okay, we went after it, and there was this massive psychological cesspool stuck in that area. And it took forever to get rid of. I mean, forever for me is an hour and a half, maybe. I mean, but it took that long to get rid of it. Once it was gone, that pain was gone. I was working with a lady yesterday who had cerebral leaks, pinpoint leaks. She had horrendous headaches. Okay, we went after that. The headaches disappeared, and her head felt normal again. And this was only after an hour. So there's so many psychosomatic illnesses that reflect physically that can be gotten rid of with the MACE stuff that they think is physical, and they're dumping chemicals into their bodies with all these prescriptions. So take these painkillers and take these anti-inflammatories and take all this garbage that really doesn't solve the problem. You know? So a lot of it is psychosomatic. It should be dealt with that way first. You know, if it's in the ER, we always required a medical clearance before we did the psych eval to make sure there was no medical trauma. But a lot of these things are medical problems that are psychosomatic in nature.
Metabolic disorder. You know, when your cell's not functioning properly, I could really go into a very boring podcast with the ATP and the Krebs cycle and where we get our energy from. Everybody hated that in biology and A&P. I'm not gonna go back there. But our cells are connected in our brain, our heart, our liver, our kidneys, our gut, everything, our nerves. It's all connected. We're not separated here. Oh, go work on my mental health over here. Go work on my heart over here. That's why we're seeing patients come in on 15 medications, because there's no coordination of care. And nobody's reviewing. In the ER, they'll take down all your meds, you know, if you're an emergency patient. That's about the only place I've ever worked that has done that. But I would get them coming in and I'm like, the lady who was went to jail for running over that person. I can guarantee you she's probably on heart meds, blood pressure meds, something. Go look at the side effects of these meds. They cause depression.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
I had a little bit of an amusing encounter with a nurse here in Germany, and I was roundabout, not quite sure, 59 or something in that range. Well, anyway, she had to fill out some forms, and then she asked me at one point, "Do you take any medication?" I said no. And but she had her sheet, and so she went through everything, you know, circulation, diabetes, and da 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 da. And I was sitting there, no, 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 no. And after a while, I felt really silly, and I said, I take an aspirin once in a while.
Just to give her something to write down. Huh?
Aspirin.
And, you know, and then she said, that is very unusual for your
Yes.
age. And I know way back when I started doing interviews, I had one with Sonia Barrett where we analyzed this. And I asked Sonia, how did that happen, that we are conditioned to think you hit your 40s and at the very least you need to take 5 pills? Where's that coming from?
Because you have a medical checkup you're recommended to go to once a year, and they have all these standards on what you should have. And instead of having a nutritionist on staff to really go over how to bring these levels down, we give you a pill. I'm going to be 65. I don't have any medications that I take. I
do take supplements.
I only take 2 supplements outside of, now I sell this, but I don't do it for money. So if you go on my website, I encourage you to buy it because it supports people we help, but you can buy it anywhere you want. I give my family Juice Plus because it's like having salad. I'm giving them fruits and salads just to make sure I feed my family well, but I can't control the quality of the food I'm buying. So, but the only two supplements I take, because of the industry I've been in, and I know how important they are, and especially because of 2020, everybody should be taking this if they did this, is NAC, N-acetylcysteine. Should be on it. It's gonna repair the liver, the glutathione. That's gonna help fight off what that did. Not guaranteed perfect, but, and thiamine, B1. My family right now at home is just my husband and I, and he's very good. If I tell him to do it, he'll do it. He won't eat as well as I want him to, but he does better than if he was on his own. But do your own research. I'm not telling people to go take these. Research it for yourself. Go alpha320.net is my website. Alpha320 is my Facebook page. Follow me. I post videos all the time on nutrition and health and mental health, but it's all connected. But NAC and thiamine. You want a little bit of magnesium in your thiamine because magnesium is the catalyst that helps metabolize the B1. I'm going to promote somebody here. Hold on a second. I always forget his name. Elliot Overton. He's a nutritionist. He helped wake me up. He doesn't even know it. And he's somewhere in Europe. All the good ones are overseas. They're not in America. He has a website called EO Nutrition. He helped wake me up for my kids and what was going on with my kids. I was seeing the autism and the ADHD. It's epidemic. It's epidemic. Why is this happening? It's a B1 deficiency. But those are the only two supplements I don't even want to say recommend, that I recommend to myself and my husband. So.
Yeah, but that was so funny that the nurse couldn't handle the fact that I'm not on any pills. Yeah, well, yeah, she got over it, but I could see, you know, the expression in her face, as I felt as if, you know, green slime is dropping out of my nose or something, as if she had encountered an alien.
Because she probably thought you weren't taking good care of yourself and that you were maybe uneducated or of poor economic circumstances where you couldn't see a
but the
doctor.
blood work told her otherwise.
Yeah, yes.
And I think one of the big ones they pull off with that is these statin drugs. You know, they want everybody on these statin drugs. And there's no proof that they work worth a damn. You know, everybody's got to be on them. Once you get 50, they want you on statin drugs. Remember, they put me on that to the point where I couldn't walk anymore. I mean, it was causing so many problems. I couldn't even walk. The muscle pain was so bad.
Yeah, I have to say, since 2020, I'm avoiding doctors.
Good.
And I have been once to a dentist, but that was it.
Good for you.
Can I tell you a horror story?
Yeah.
When I was in grad school, and mind you, I was a trauma nurse. So that was my background. My husband's a tinkerer. He was tinkering out in the garage, and it was Saturday morning, and I heard a kabang. I always hear kabangs when he's tinkering, but my gut said, go look. And I went out into the garage and I saw a man on the ground, blood, pool of blood. Didn't even know where it was coming from. He had agonal breathing. I knew bad. I knew enough to move his head, just enough to get him airway, pouring blood out of his head somewhere, don't even know. Call 911, very unprofessional call, because I'm in shock. What his care was when he got to the ER, and he was a trauma call, Jerry. And they would have life flighted him, but it was fogged over. This was in Ohio. They downgraded him on the way in and parked him in the ER.
No.
And he was discharged a few days later without a diagnosed skull fracture, amongst many other injuries. So I bring him home with a gait belt. He can't even walk. Undiagnosed skull fracture. Can't eat because he's so nauseated from the skull fracture. Long story short, I ended up long story short, on his follow-up, to find out why blood is coming out of his ear, the ENT says he has a skull fracture. Oh, no, he doesn't. The trauma hospital said, no, there's no head injury. And he goes, clearly, and he's showing it to me, he has a skull fracture. So we had to I took him right back to the ER, and they're mocking me. I said, my husband can't eat. I'm told he has a skull fracture. Oh, what? Are you a doctor now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I-
Oh, that's horrible.
And I'm a nurse, and they don't know it. I don't walk in going, I'm a nurse. And I'm seeing how poorly I'm being treated. My point is, you have to have at least a little bit of knowledge and be an advocate for yourself, because the system is so arrogant and so tunnel vision that they're not even doing good care anymore.
I watched two similar cases. One on the medical unit where this fellow he was having real hallucinations. They diagnosed him with psychosis and started pouring these antipsychotic drugs into him on top of it, and it wasn't psychosis. And I called that, and the psychiatrist got furious. That they were poisoning him more, with these drugs that he didn't need. There was another one where the psychiatrist would only listen to the mother. They wouldn't let the patient, which was her daughter, in there with them. They had these secret conferences outside of the daughter, and then they call the daughter in and go, okay, we're changing your meds to this or that, based on what the mother said, with no input from the patient whatsoever. I called that and ended up in trouble up to my neck. It's
Jerry,
crazy.
that's great. That is a great example for somebody to get this really easy. In the ER, when we would get older people coming in who suddenly lost their I'll just say their mind. They weren't thinking clearly. They were very confused. They didn't even recognize people around them. We know, look for infection. It's an infection, more likely a UTI, something. Now, clearly, with that example, you can see the connection that when one system goes down, it impacts lots of other systems.
Yeah, and UTIs is a big one. We ran into that all the time, undiagnosed UTIs, and they'd start dousing them down with psych drugs.
Yeah, you got to look at the body as a whole. You just don't go, oh, you're depressed, let's treat that. Well, no, let's find the root cause. Let's find the root cause.
Take a pill.
So what I took away from this, what needs to change in mental health is, number one, the monster is too big for us to take it head on.
And deep.
Yet that doesn't mean there is no hope.
Nope.
Because number two, we can finally learn how to take care of ourselves, how to better feed ourselves, and make it go away that way.
You have the choice.
And we can help our families if they may not be able to do it yet, but we can help them get there. That's the way it used to be. We don't send them outside of the home to get help. We can do this. It starts with ourselves and our own choices.
Yeah. And that basically only requires to overcome, our own laziness.
Laziness, yes. We
And-
all
and
have
the
to
lie.
do it. Yeah.
And the lies we've been taught. I mean, from the time we were kids, we've been swamped with lie after lie after lie after lie by the system for their profit, not ours.
Yeah, Jerry, that is very true. But even people who know that it is all garbage sometimes have the problem to overcome their laziness and really start doing the work.
They
Yes.
do. They do. I love what you said. Start small. It does not have to be overwhelming. Start with the little bit you can do. If it's just throwing out your vegetable oil and never touch it, that's why it's hard to go out for fast food. It's cheap to cook in vegetable oil. All of your fast foods are cooked in this stuff. All of it. I'm not saying never go again. I love Chick-fil-A. I love Chipotle. Don't eat it all the time. Don't eat it all the time. And honestly, when you start taking control of your diet, you won't want it. You just won't
That's
want it.
true.
And expect if you do go to a psychiatrist, you will come out with a diagnosis and you will come out with a prescription for some kind of toxic med. Expect it.
Now, do want to say one thing, and it's not bashing at all. It's really just, it's actually a begging. If there's any primary care physicians out there that happen to listen to this, don't start your patients on meds, refer them. Don't start your patients on meds if they come in depressed, unless you have the time to really thoroughly do a history on them. Because that lady, the grandma, ended up in jail because she was started on an antidepressant by a primary care provider. And she didn't have a clue she went manic. And SSRIs they have a manic response to many people. And the industry will go, oh, they're bipolar. No, they're reacting to the medication. Get them off the med. You know, it's the whole thing's just sad.
Jerry,
There's hope. So
yeah, and the hope is, as usual, it's us, we.
Yes.
individual. Yeah.
Yeah, so forget about fighting the big monster. Pull the rug from under the monster and, make it obsolete by being healthy, by taking care of yourself. That is a good way. Fighting the monster will probably not.
No, it's too big.
Yeah, but healthy people don't need the monster anymore.
No. Shed the monster.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jerry, do you have any final words for us?
Well, you can, if you're interested in psychosis, you can go to my website at jerrymarzinsky.com and find out what really entails that, what the voices really are that drive this thing. And, like Janet said, there's a lot of it has to do with trauma and nutrition. Deal with those first. And in a lot of cases, I've treated people who I thought were psychotic, and it turned out to be a negative identity, and they were good. They were good after that.
Yeah. So I thank you both so much for coming.
With a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having us again.
I had fun. I liked it. So yeah, guys, that was it, Night Flight for today. And as usual, you are the solution. Until next time, bye-bye.
Good night.